The views expressed on Talk Real Solutions, hosted by Tyrone Thompson at talkrealsolutions.com, are the views of Tyrone Thompson and do not reflect the views of talkrealsolutions.com, YouTube, or etc. The content here belongs to Talk Real Solutions and its many contributors. Views and opinions expressed by all contributors belong to them and not talkrealsolutions.com or Tyrone Thompson, the host, or etc. All data and information provided on the site is for informational purposes only. Talk Real Solutions makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information on this site and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis.
All right, what's good? Hello, everybody. How you doing? How you doing? As I get things prepared, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and follow the channel. Normally, I do my normal introduction, but this is a very unique new series I'm probably going to start delve into now. And I didn't put much thought into this. I had the book for a while, and I always said I was gonna go through it, not the full book or the full, all how many pages book I had? Probably made almost 200 pages. But I'm gonna do segments of this, and I think it's now to really look into this book in its entirety with more commentary. But like always, if you're new to the channel, welcome. As you know, this will be a segment for the Zero Inch channel. And I hear myself pretty well now. And this particular new type of chapter series is going to really delve into, I could say, when we talk about people traveling abroad, look for love or looking for sex, nonetheless, it's very intriguing. I find that, when it comes to most people in the world, we all know the travesties, the atrocities they do. But one thing is not really clear. After so-called enslavement, not a lot of black folks went and decided to pack their stuff or, make the concept to go back home to the motherland. Africa, especially. Now, I'm not talking about the Caribbean or any other part, but back to the homeland that they said they were taken from. Majority of black people, and I say majority of them, at the time, once the chains were released, the physical chains, majority of them stayed in America and made life, build a life. But as time progressed over the next century, in the 20th century, I would say the end part of 20th century, and we could say even go further, maybe a little longer. There were some glimpses of only time we see black folks be able to travel is either they made a lot of money and could afford it, or serve military service. Now, when I hear about men traveling, especially what they call passport bros, it itself was a beast in itself, for lack of better words. And the only reason why men, especially black men that create this moniker, was so popular is only because of the assistance of black women, unfortunately. They're the ones that helped drive and gave the promotion, the free promotion was well needed for the men that could afford it or already were there, gave them a name, gave them the eyeballs, gave them the identity for everybody throughout the internet to talk about. And to the point now you see certain people who are trying to demonize what we call the passport bros. But nonetheless, and trust me, it did work to the point from was it back in 2022 or 22 end of 2021 going 2022, it started to really pick full steam of men traveling more, and it was be more advertised to the point you see a lot of ladies start demonizing a lot of brothers for even exercising the option to go find either other mates outside America or even go as far as find a quick nut busting experience. They call sex, but anyhow, that's not the premise of me going through this particular book. This book more focused that was written back in 2018 of a lot of ladies travels outside the country, and it was not really known as what they call it. I think they call them passport sisters, but that's some new moniker. But the point of this book, or the present of the woman that wrote this book, was to understand why will women travel outside for not just find love if they do find it, but also find just the get their rocks off when sake of conversation. So, nonetheless, this will be the focus of this series, and it's a very unique book. I have not read it from the beginning from end, but I think I should make a series and read it for the crowd to listen for themselves. The book that's titled will be the series. The book is titled "The Pursuit of Happiness: The Black Woman's Diaspora Dreams and the Political Emotional Transnationalism," and it's written by, I believe she's an American, born in America, the one they call Bianca C. Williams, Jamaican descent that studied, I think, in was it North Carolina, one university. Let me see what state this was. Well, it was printed by Duke University Press, so somewhere around North Carolina, either Duke or Birmingham, North Carolina. I think she's a professor. But I'm not going to her real background. Y'all could look her up better for more clarity. So that's the book. I like to call this title more suited. It's The Pursuit of Dick. And the title speaks for itself. This is the real more premise of the series. So, not to hold y'all up, we are going to go into the what we like to call the introduction part of The Pursuit of Dick. So, for those that's listening, make sure you got your headphones on. Make sure your volume's all the way up for this one. This is going to be a very, I would say, a tedious series, a lengthy series, but I am up for the task to go through it in all love and understanding and some real criticism. So, let's see. My mic's working? All right. Let us begin. And I'll try to be as clear as possible. So, bear with me. The introduction part. Jamaica crawls into my soul. Black women's effects and the promise of the diaspora. Caring for myself is not self-indulge or is self-preservation, and that the act of political welfare by Andre Lord, but don't wait around for other people to be happy for you. Any happiness you get, you got to make yourself. Alice Walker. Now, before we go into this, let me see if I can get cover. One moment, guys. Let me skip this here. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So I got everything in order. Let's go into it. So I read all. I might do halfway to this book. Halfway this pages for this brief introduction, but we'll see. Perhaps it's a pillar to begin a book about happiness with a savory centered on crime. While tears can have many meanings, they are not usually a central part of one's vacation narrative. Consequently, as I sat in a silent on a Cliff in Jamaica with the ladies of Girlfriends Tours International (GFT), each starling up at a scary sky or staring at a scary sky and reflecting on our times country in the country. I had to stop and ask myself, what is all this crying about? The evening had begun with a filling into a 16 passenger van to make the 10-minute drive from our hotel on the beach to the cliff of Negril, West End for dinner. It was the first night of the annual tour by GFT, a group of predominantly African American women from all over the United States, ranging in age from 22 to their early 60s. God damn. We held on to our sear or our seats as the drive as the driver sped through the twisting and turns of the hills, following the Jacqueline instruction to hurry up before we miss the sunset. With our hair, we call it devouring, but our lives still intact, we finally pull up to the restaurant and dives at a large chalkboard advertisement in the long list of seafood and Jamaican cuisines and the cooked specialists, and with a daily special cozy soup written in bold white block letters. 6 picnic benches and round wooden table painted bright red, yellow, and green marks of the spots where we would break bread and begin our initiation into girlfriendship. I don't know what the hell that is. That sounds like some new stuff. Girlfriendship. Mm. Marilyn Williams and Angela Hartston, the founder of the GFT, explains that they love dives because there was space at the back of the restaurant to make a campfire. The proximity of the benches to the cliff's edge gave the impression that we were sitting directly over the water. The beauty of the vast blue oceans and the rhythmic crashings of waves against the cliff served as an impressive introduction to Jamaica and provide a searing background for the founders to share their life stories with their girlfriends. Every year, on the second night of the tour, girlfriends were initiated into GTF or GFT on the cliffs. On the cliffs. Each cliff's initiation played out in a similar manner. After the group made small talk in the main eating area where they were from, how long it had taken to get to Jamaica, and how many delays or obstacles the ladies had survived at various airports. Marilyn and Angie would welcome them to the tour group and tell them to enjoy the amazing cuisine. Shortly after, the food or deer hors d'oeuvres were taken. Marilyn would whisper in the ear of one lady, "Girl, come here. I got something to show you." She would then escort the girlfriend down the steps and over to the dark, dirty path of the edge of the cliff, holding her hand tightly so she would not fall, and seat her on the wooden bench near the campfire. Marilyn would sit down near the girlfriend, gave her hand right squeeze, and encouraged her to just look at the stars that lit up the sky, smell the ocean air, and take in Jamaica. After a few moments of silence had passed, and Marilyn felt like the woman had stealthily followed her instructions and relaxed, she would smile and say, in her southern accent. Welcome to Jamaica, girlfriend. The accent is right with that one. More often than not, the statement would immediately draw a few tears from the initiating girlfriend's eyes, and she would thank Marilyn for bringing her there after they sat in silence together for a few more moments. Marilyn would head back to the dining area to escort the next girlfriend down. Eventually, all the girlfriends would be sitting on the edge of the cliff together, and each lost in her thoughts intimately. They would begin to speak softly and share stories about their lives and their struggles and why they had come to Jamaica. I hear a diverse collection of life experience when I first observed and participated in these initiations. And in 2004, I connect deeply with these women, and most are central to the rest of this book. Jacqueline, a 54-year-old educator, had begun traveling to Jamaica to get away from all the drama in the United States. Gail, a 52-year-old professional, begins her travel to Jamaica in 2000 after ending a long-term relationship with a boyfriend. Sitting next to her was Maya, a 54-year-old civil service worker who plans on retiring in 2 years to open her own bed and breakfast in Jamaica. Sasha, a 35-year-old woman from DC, said that she had caught Jamaican fever from Jacqueline, whom she had met online. These was standard episodes of the GFT initiation. One by one, each girlfriend would reveal a tiny piece of her story. Some share more than other, but it was during this moment of life sharing that almost every year the collective tear would begin. Although I was an ethnographic interest in the effective dimensions of black women level experience, I had nor consider what to do if a what they call interlocutor begins to cry. In fact, as I accompanied these mostly middle-aged African American women on their multiple vacations to Jamaica, back to their hometowns in the United States, and finally on virtually journeys in their web communities from 2003 to 2007, I was initially surprised, even dumbfounded, by the frequent display of tearing throughout our trips and conversations. However, after 4 years of listening to their life narrative and combining through hundreds of discussions threads online, I came to understand that the shedding of tears was a form of individual and collective emotional release that was connected to largely stories and happiness. Yearning, struggles, validation, escapes, and love. These large stories symbolize the complex web of contradictory images, destructive stereotypes, and misrecognition black women experience as they live at the intersection of racism and sexism, or what they call misreconciliation. That's how they pronounce it. Unfortunately, popular myths about black women as Jezebels, sapphires, mammies, strong black women, along with defective based scholarship. Research that focuses on what black women lack and views them as a problem no be fixed or problem to be fixed affect both the visibility of these women and the way they are represented. Once they are made visible, as a result, when we are tear dropped from the eyes of black women, it is easy to draw on a familiar narrative that leads to a simplistic conclusion. Black women live black women's lives are full of sadness, struggles, and those tears are what results when one strives to beat the odds. Because of historical and contemporary boredom, racism, and sexism, struggles is undoubtedly an aspect of many black women's lives. However, it has always been only a portion of our story. What about black women and happiness? Pleasure, leisure during my years in the fieldwork with women of the GFT, I document how these black women found ways to pursue and experience these things in the context of generation of racialized and gender oppression. When I first met some of the African American women of Girlfriend Tour International in Jamaica in 2003, it was their undeniable happiness that most impressed me. This tour group, composed of predominantly of African American heterosexual cisgender women, features some of the most lovely young at heart and black women in their 40s and 50s I had ever met. Now you see, I don't like when black women use that word cisgender. You gotta get that out of your vocabulary, sweetie. You're not cis. You're a woman, natural born woman. That cis stuff is that sissy stuff, that weirdo stuff. Anyway, a few members were married or partner, while most were divorced and or single. They were dedicated to live life to the fullest set and enjoy everything Jamaica had to offer, including the latest dancehall music and dancehall moves. Joy Reddick offered each woman and a scene a sense of tranquility penetrating the group or permeating with the group. These women declared that they did not need husbands, boyfriends, or some other male escort to travel internationally. They were fine navigating unfamiliar streets on their own. In fact, it seems that most of these self-proclaimed Jamaicaolics were excited by the tour group focused on women and the opportunity of building girlfriendships or deep female friendships. It was a tear of happiness, restoration, and connection shared by the black woman or girlfriend tour international, along with their profound expression of girlfriendship and sexuality in Jamaica that led me to writing this book. Something about the sense of black womanhood they expressed felt freely or frenzy, and this freedom intrigues me. The shedding of tears is a metaphoric theme running throughout the chapter. One of the connections of the different emotions aspects of this woman is transnationalism, as the vocabulary notions, traveling while black suggests race affects the emotional experience of international travel, as do gender, class, and national identity. I use the phrase emotional transnationalism, originally coined by Diane Wolf, to capture this experience and to connect the girlfriend emotional lives with their transnational mobility. In her research on second generation Filipinos, Wolf defines emotional transnationalism as the process of sustaining transnational connection through emotional and ideology. Emotional transnationalism conceptualizes the ambiguous and contradiction embedded in the girlfriend pursuit of happiness. In the context of girlfriend races and patriarchism or patriarchism, this group understands of their rational and gender subjectivity is not contained by or simply attached to their notion stated, but rather a deeply connected to their particular or what they call participation in transnational process and engagement in what they envision as a diaspora community. These women choice about whom to love, or whom to relax, and where to find personal acceptance and community. The together countries and cultures using technology that are different from those of the past. New technology often results in new forms of connectivity and belongingness of the link of historical rational and gender ideology. As I observe their emotions and track their tears from the United States to Jamaica and back, I wonder what led girlfriends to use these technologies and seek leisure experiments, and the concept of emotional transnationalism offers to theoretically and that enables the answer to two central research questions. First, why do people like the girlfriends seek our transnationalism and diaspora experience? And how might I'm sorry, okay. The girlfriend seeks our transnational and diaspora experience, and how might their desires for each experience reflect nationally specific, effective, and political economics of race and gender? Second, how might our understanding of the rational gender and emotional aspect of transnationalism shift if we place Black women at the center of our research? This book is what they call hold on, multi-visit or multi-isset ethnographic studies of a group of African American women and African American tourist women and their transitional journalism of happiness. I explore the emotional journeys these women encounter as they seek wellness, belongingness, and context of national and diasporic differences. I also examine how these African American women make sense of the paradoxical nature of their hyphenating identities while traveling to Jamaica. Initially, like many tourists, they simply seek a leisure escape from the stress of everyday life, but over time, the repeal rips off these self proclaimed Jamaicaholics take on more meaning as they begin to use Jamaica as a site for dealing with and escaping from America racism and sexism. These African American women have established a complex concept of happiness, one that can only be fulfilled by moving both virtually and geographically. Across national borders to travel, the Jamaican girlfriend needs American economic, nationality, and social capital at the same time to remain hopefully and happily within the United States. They need a spiritual connectedness, a spiritual connection to their imagined second home of Jamaica and their image community of Jamaica. I argue that their access to virtual and international travels enable them to temporarily replace their experience of hardship and invisibility in the United States with fantasy and happiness, intimacy, community, and connective to Jamaica. The pursuit of happiness affects the understanding of girlfriend relationship on Jamaica that sheds light on multiple areas of anthropology, inquiry, mythology, and the virtual and transitional aspects of these multifaceted works expand by the possibility of ethnographical documents, images, community, and diaspora language, or diaspora longing. Substantially, the focus of these women affected lives imminent by significant emotional costs of living a reconciled and gender subject in the United States. The challenge, discourse of the political and the deep phasing emotional particular black people feeling importance modes of data and site of meaning making. Additionally, here's highlight some transitional strategies people use to gain access to emotional wellness, leisure, and belonging. And last, while the ethnographic centers use the perspective of the group of African American women as a whole to eliminate some of the power dynamics of particular in mentioning African diasporic communities. Let me see where I'm going to stop. I might stop at page 11. All right. Emotional transnationalism. Emotional transnationalism is essential to theorize the race happiness of diaspora. It enables a useful analysis of exercising of power and privilege, practice of reciprocity, and solidarity. The transfer of culture, meaning of the modifications of the identity formation Black women construct and publicize as they create their transnationalized networks and community girlfriends of access to class and geographical mobility, and their movements in virtual and physical space challenge notions of happiness and wellness that mistakenly bind these pursuits to home or a nation state. The fact that they are African American women, women who are descendants of enslavement, African who movements changed the world insignificant. Their ancestors were forcibly removed from Africa, chained inside the bellies of the ships, and sailed across the Atlantic against their will, awaiting of this history, aware of the history, and that their moments of different girlfriends recognize the profound sense of choice of free will they have as they move across national borders and engage in leisure that their ancestors could not. However, they also note how their mobility has been constrained by sexist notions that women should not travel on their own, or it is abnormal for women to the sexual being after the age of 15. And by the particular way, Black women happiness and leisure often seem incongruent to many, while their narratives and interwove with the trauma of the transatlantic slave trade and a yearning of diaspora connectivity as a significant aspect of their pursuit of happiness. Their emotional experiences are more complex than their single origin story of diaspora. Therefore, my use of emotional transnationalism is above mapping their desire for girlfriend, diaspora connectivity, and pursuit, and above the many or the ways race and gender influence these desires. Emotional transnationalism is important for understanding how these women have created a transnational emotional social field, a field that includes countries that are geographically bound by also constructing emotional, cultural, and virtually research interested in transnationalism and globalizing the theoretized, facilitating ways good ideas and people increasingly cross national borders and geographical boundaries. However, less Americans, no, less attention has been paid to the transnational dynamics of emotional, how people carry emotions with them as they move, experience, and their individual, collective across time and space. David Harvey concept of time and space comprised of transformation is useful here as it allows the theorization of the temporal and Spartacus aspects of emotions. Harvey argues that process of capitalizing commodification and accommodation alongside technology advise or advance can lead to a shrinking of distance or a sense that different times and space are closer together than they are appeared before. For the women of the GFT, Jamaica, and the United States are two countries with distinct countries that offer essential components for their pursuit of happiness. Their emotions are linked in their experience of racialized and cultural political, which are connected to actual nations, states, and geographical space within the group. Many girlfriends are black women who feel they cannot experience happiness regularly within the United borders or the U.S. borders because of America's racism and sexism. Consequently, they begin to search for ways to fulfill their inalienability rights by temporarily leaving the United States, drawing on diaspora connections and imagination, and pursuing happiness and belongs in Jamaica. While in many, by weird to cry on vacation, these women cry because they cannot fully disconnect from the emotional borders of racism and sexism in the United States. Even as they search for a space where racism is not as prevalent, they also shed tears while experiencing joy and affirmation within the kinship of other Black American women. And as they virtually and physically travel between the two countries, cultivating deep and connections to people, place, and their own understanding of self, time, and space seems to comprise, and their crying takes on different meanings. The time between the past and the present comprise as they experience diasporic nostalgia and long for a racial and cultural unity with the Jamaicans that they imagine was prevented in another ancestral time. Their happiness lies in the ideal that although slavery was terrible for black populations in both countries, it is a shared historical that creates connection in the present. Girlfriend assume that their relationship with Jamaica men and their more strained connection with Jamaica women will be nourished by the shared history and collective experience of rationalizing suffering and resilience. Hmm. Resiliences. These women experience exploit their emotions in virtual and physical spaces that concretely emphasize on the blurb each country borders girlfriend emotions simultaneously are experienced in the present, engaging a provision diasporic movement and embody a hope for a future through the examination of their emotional and conception of emotional transnationalism enabled as the recognition of how certain ideals and feelings, particularly those connected to the race and racism, are linked to specialized and temporalized or temporally. Sorry, temporarily. Next, the significance of imagined community, race, gender, and diaspora. My analysis of girlfriends' relationship with one another with Jamaica and with Jamaican draws on a contribution of theories about image community. To understand how image community are influenced by technological advances and determinization of economic and political power and increased movements and mobility. Many engaged Benedict Anderson and Paramount theorized of nationalism of the national state in this book. In Imagine Communities, Anderson describes the nation state as a unique form of political communities shaped by historical forces and images of community. He argues that the community image of the numbers or the members will never know more their fellow members meet their even heard of them, yet in the minds of each lives the image lives the image of the communities. Communities and it's often an image because regardless of the actual inequalities or inequalities of exploitation that may prevail in each of the nations as always conceived as a deep horizon or yeah, horizontal contractship, if I pronounce it right, or commandership. The image community created by GFT members is a rich site for eliminating the possibilities of elimination of Anderson concept because the image community is fragile with the dilemma that arises for individual negative and complicated trains of identity and community formation. These stories of image community takes up Anderson's emphasis on imagination, stretching his analysis to conceptualize some of the ways race, diasporic, and transnationality problematic or problematizing our perception of community as a collective based on what they call sadness and similarities. Anderson theorized does not actively account for the rational dimensions of image, community, and tension that different experience and understanding of race. The racism may generate. Anderson does, however, suggest that inadequate differences in tension and frequent embedded in imagination communities by using race as a tool for homing in on these differences. Our understanding of community shifts as we can take seriously the tantalizing images and emotional aspect of rationalized experience within communities. I also use Anderson's notion of an image community as an entry point for articulating how imaging of African diaspora relationships, particularly African American imaging, connecting with the divergence from Anderson's interpretation of the community works, I deconstruct the narrative of diaspora communities by the ladies of GFT created in order to understand how members of African diaspora may experience blackness differently and how power differential connections to gender, class, and national compliancy visibility of diaspora as an image community since process of rationalization and diaspora what's called subjectivity and inherently about power, mobility, and difference of one can connect or conceive that these processes may act as dilemmas for images, communities, tension may arise as an individual who imagines community one way in confronting with alternative realization I'm sorry, realities when others perceived as community members do not share the same image. The community created by GFT members eliminate by possibilities of diaspora images and potential ruptures generations by diaspora realities. How might the image community shift and transform if a time community are viewed and shared and at other times the image seamlessly is rejected? I am the what they call portrait particular notion about diaspora community by highlighting some of the power differential in diaspora formations by analyzing how effective transactional influence and the creation of maintenance of diaspora relations, particularly those in which nations, economics, and gender difference frequently become marked as an GFT or as less investigation diaspora diversity. Additionally, instead of anchoring the notion of diaspora in prevalence, historical, of pain and of suffering, this book shows how people use leisure, laughter, and pursuit of happiness to construct diaspora, while memories of slavery and discrimination differently inform these women constructing a blackness and black identity. Their experience of pleasure and leisure also grounds their imagination of diaspora communities. Finally, these ethnographical studies of image, community, and emotional transnationalism show how the women of GFT use transnational methods to create communities and engage in effective trans action. In the past 30 years, it has become commonplace in disciplines such as anthropology and sociology to argue that many of our lived experiences are not limited to national borders, but are in fact transactional. Studies of transnationalism have been conceptualized as a political examination of movements and mobility. Recognition that power and privilege are embedded in the ability to cross national borders and geographical lines, identifying who has access to global movement and mobility, driving for people through people, goods, and ideas. Frequently points to whom has access to economic wealth and political capital. The transnational factor influence rationales between African American and Jamaicans are all slanted. The GFT members participate in various forms of movement, but their movement is different from that of the communities, usually studies under the rubric of transnational studies. The chapter that follows describes the women's various methods of mobility, explains why these movements seem necessary to those tourists, describe how their identity as Black American women affect methods that they use to become virtually, physically, and emotionally or economically mobile. These movements across national borders and the new networks of friends and whew, whew, families that the mobility enables drastically change how these women think of themselves as rationalized diaspora subjects. Their experience highlights specifically ways that transnational forces complicate the formation and maintenance of images and community. The pursuit of happiness focuses on both, or I should call it, or we call this broadcast, the pursuit of dick. Both virtually and real-time communities in which the connection between race, gender affects the transnationalism are crucial. Because Black women live, what they call demonstrate the dynamism of race and gender and speak on issues of power and privilege, their experiences are crucially important for understanding the tension of exchange that emerge in this transnational increase of globalized world. However, the experience of narrative of Black women, particularly Black American women, are scarce in transnational studies. Moreover, scholars and journalists who do address the lives of Black American women often limit their analysis and representations in three ways. One, they present narratives that constrain these women experience to the national borders of the United States, neglecting to understand how their lives are influenced by transnational process and various forms of mobility. Two, they discount the differently racialized and gender experienced Black women have when engaged in these transnational process. And the third, they frequently offer a one-dimensional view of these women's struggles within space of instinctualizing social oppression, processing them simply as sad, depressed women without also engaging their desire and ability to experience pleasure, leisure, and happiness. This lack of attention to Black women narrative and experience is not unique to transnational studies. While there have been explosions of effective studies and highlights affecting social and political dimensions, few of these studies theorize that ways that affect and also rational, but for these rationalized as Blacks in the United States that the way the effects it lives, experience, and political are inextricable from the rationality. Black feminist scholars such as Faye V. Harris, Patrice Hill Collins, Deborah Gray White, and Beverly Guy Sheffield have long argued that if we examine the live experience and political without engaging in rational analysis, we miss crucial dimensions of how power works. As just me example, public health studies describe how black health is affected by misrecognizing, or they call misrecognitionizing these literature also linked experience of racism and high blood pressure, stress-induced disease, and unhealthy coping mechanisms being being seen as different, of being discriminated against because the race can generalize emotionally that becomes profound, significant, not only a physical health, but also the one understanding the self and sense of belonging. Emotions are not limited to personalized, historical, and individual anonymity or anecdotes. They also bring otherwise abstract ideals, oppression, and discrimination into the stark relief for individual actors because of these emotions are as excellent source of information about how intersectionality oppression become refined. To not insert race into the story of affecting is to leave out the crucial dimensions necessary to an adequate understanding of how affective works and no neglect to paramount roles race played for those who are rationalized as blacks in the United States. Additionally, to equate blackness with masculinity or to assure that black men experience are the same as black women experience is to ignore the significance of gender in their everyday lives. Crucially, race studies, diaspora studies, and gender studies have all made important contributions to the project on theorizing, rationalizing, and gender subjectivities, subjectivities, but these studies frequently remain delinked and relegated to theorize solo. Black feminists, though, by contrast, enables a better understanding of the links between emotion, transnationalism, due to emphasis of narratives, lives, experience, emotional, and ultimately sites of meaning making and empowering black feminists through anchoring many examinations of whom the process of rationalization and gendering are central to black American women lives, including their pursuit of happiness. I identified the methods black women use to pursue happiness and emotional wellness in the context of American racism and sexism, and I show how the transnational and central to their pursuit of happiness. This book lays out how the emotional journeys of black women led to their momentarily, or what they call monumental lives in a space that many argue should make them happy, their families, their homes, in their native countries, and their jobs. What about these women's lives as black women push them to repeatedly leave the land of opportunity to pursue happiness? What happiness what happens when black American women begin to look beyond their nation borders for happiness and fulfillment? More broadly, what can these tourist women emotionally journey and participate in affects transactions tell us about race and gender? In a contemporary moment of globalization and transnationalism. We'll stop there. I'm going somewhat partially the halfway point. I got like another 10, a few pages, but that's just the halfway point of this particular introduction. Hope you enjoyed that part. Be on the lookout for the other half in a coming broadcast. Like always, make sure you like the stream, share the stream, and leave a comment on your thoughts on this particular half section of the book. Until next time, say take care.